Welcome to the 700 Club. 2 days after the election, we're still counting. And in the race for the White House, Joe Biden is now closer to 270 electoral votes needed to win. President Trump is down, but not yet out, with a much tighter path to victory.
The Trump campaign is now contesting vote counts in 4 battleground states. Meanwhile, protesters on both sides have taken to the streets. George Thomas reports.
All eyes are on the count in the key states of Arizona, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Nevada, and North Carolina as the nation holds its collective breath to see who wins the race for the White House. Biden got closer last night with projections that he'll win Michigan and Wisconsin, putting the Democrat challenger's electoral tally at 253 to Trump's 214. The Trump team is calling for a recount in Wisconsin. 270 electoral college votes are needed to win the presidency.
I'm not here to declare that we've won, but I am here to report when the count is finished, we believe we will be the winners.
The Trump campaign believes it still has a chance. The president would have to win either Arizona or Nevada and still sweep Georgia, Pennsylvania, and North Carolina. While the counting continues, the president's team filed lawsuits in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Georgia, laying the groundwork for contesting battleground states' election results. In Pennsylvania, the president is leading Biden, but with large amounts of mail-in ballots yet to be counted, the Trump campaign is seeking to stop counting ballots that arrived after Election Day, claiming it's not been given proper access to observe the process.
Not a single Republican has been able to look at any one of these mail ballots.
In Michigan, Trump supporters protesting at vote-counting centers in Detroit over similar claims. Michigan's Attorney General insisting both parties have access to the counting process. Meanwhile, Republicans look poised to hold the Senate, even as Michigan's Democratic Senator Gary Peters has been declared the winner there. On Wednesday, Maine's Senate race was called for Republican incumbent Susan Collins. GOP candidates are currently leading in races still undecided in North Carolina, Alaska, and Georgia. Overnight, as votes continued to trickle in, this was the scene in Portland, Oregon, as the National Guard was called out to stop widespread violence and destruction by protesters. 11 people were arrested as authorities in the city said the protests had turned into a riot. George Thomas, CBN News.
Well, CBN chief political analyst David Brody is with us. And David, it looks like President Trump has a hard path forward. What are the chances of him sweeping the remaining states?
Well, Gordon, I'm going to take it like this because I've been thinking a lot about how do we relate this to everybody and just kind of dumb it down, if you will. Think of it like a football game, right? Donald Trump down by a field goal. Time is running out. He's got 4 downs, you know, 1st and 10, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th down, right? You got 4 chances to get it in the end zone. The first chance, let's just assume he wins Georgia, North Carolina, because he's got to have those. The first chance is for him to win Pennsylvania and Nevada. If he does that, he's the president of the United States. But if he fails on 1st down, he goes to 2nd down. 2nd down, once again, Georgia, North Carolina. Then he needs to win Pennsylvania and hope that Arizona goes back and goes into his category. And we'll talk about that if you want in a moment. That's 2nd down. If that fails, we're at 3rd down. 3rd down is a canvassing and a recount of Michigan and Wisconsin. A harder sell for sure, but that's 3rd down. If that all fails, then, Gordon, we're in the Hail Mary stage, and that's where the Supreme Court and many of these legal lawsuits come in. And if he can potentially have a Hail Mary at the end of this thing in December, possibly, late November, that's where we could end up.
Well, the Federalist came out with a post yesterday talking about vote dumping in Michigan, and 2 unusual cases. One, 130,000 votes being added into the tally, and every single one of them for Biden. Another one where a county that broke 29% to Trump 4 years ago is now breaking 30% to Biden this time. It just seems to be some unusual things happening in the vote tally. What's your take on that? Is this something that the president's legal team will pursue?
100%. They're going to pursue that, and we've heard a lot about that on Twitter. As a matter of fact, Twitter tried to Well, I'd say we heard a lot about it on Twitter. Then it got out there, but Twitter tried to shut all of that vote dumping down. But that's a whole nother issue. But look what's happening in Pennsylvania right now. The new hanging chad could be cured ballots, C-U-R-E-D, these cured ballots. In other words, there are ballots coming into, especially down in that Philadelphia area, that either have a smudged signature or it hasn't been signed. And so what they're doing, normally those ballots would be discounted. That's not happening in Philadelphia. What they're doing is they're getting the voter, long story short, but they're bringing the voter back in to say, is this your signature? Is this correct? And then go ahead and counting the vote potentially if it does match up. Well, that sounds like, okay, that's nice to do. One vote, you have the whole vote situation there. But hold on for a second. The rest of the counties in Pennsylvania aren't doing that. They're not curing ballots. So you have Philadelphia County, a huge county, and Montgomery and Bucks and all that, curing ballots, but you don't have curing ballots going on in many of the rural portions of the state. That's also going to be a part of a legal contention.
Well, if it turns into a lawsuit, which it already has, it's already gone that route, then how long are we looking at before we actually have a declared winner that everyone says you won?
Well, it's going to be expedited. And what does expedited mean exactly? Look, the bottom line is this. There are laws that basically say that you have to stop counting. You have to literally stop counting all votes in America, all states, by November 23rd. Has to stop. So we know it's probably going to go on at least until November 23rd in terms of all of the ballot counting, even though we've heard North Carolina November 12th, we've heard Pennsylvania November 6th. But the bottom line is you have to literally put down the pen, the number 2 pencil, if you will, on November 23rd. At that point, you could see something maybe in late November or early December, but definitely sometime before Christmas. 2020, I tell you what, it's more of the anti-love letter from 2020 to all of us.
All right. 2020 is going to be in history as anti-love letter year. All right. The GOP, assuming it doesn't change by the end of the month, it looks like it's going to hold on to the Senate. What does that mean going forward, assuming Joe Biden wins the presidential election?
Well, at this point, if Biden becomes the next president of the United States, it's everything, Gordon. It's everything for Republicans. It will be the difference between court packing or non-court packing. In other words, there will be no court packing if Senate Republicans maintain control. And I can go on in terms of a list of, whether or not Supreme Court justices are nominated. There'll be more centrists. I can go on and on. Bottom line is it'll be huge. And most likely we're looking at 51-49 is my sense right now in terms of Republicans keeping control. There's another Senate race, obviously, in Georgia that has to be determined sometime in January. Gordon, I did want to mention, and this does relate to the Senate, but also to the presidential race, it's interesting to look at the electorate. I've been doing some number crunching, and you look at Donald Trump's vote of the Latino vote. He's up 4% from 2016 with Latinos across the country. He's up 4% among the black vote as well. But he is down 2% in the non-college white educated voter. And if you go into Michigan and Wisconsin, you see those numbers even more. He's down about 2 or 3%. Look, Gordon, right there. That's game, set, match if Joe Biden becomes president. We'll see.
All right. Well, Republicans, sort of against all odds, the only one I heard saying this was John Waggy, that they were going to pick up seats in the House. Is there hand-wringing on the Democrat side in terms of they were predicting it? They thought they would get the supermajority, and then Republicans were predicting it, but it looks like the GOP added seats and the Democrats lost. What does that mean?
Well, that's right. I mean, look, it looks like Democrats obviously are going to continue. Well, they'll have control of the House. But you're right. What happened to the blue wave? I mean, John Waggy was correct. I mean, there was not a blue wave. And indeed, there's going to be a few House seats picked up by Republicans. They can actually go more than just plus 2 or 3. It could be a lot more than that. And they're doing well in Orange County, the OC out in California. Some of the districts they lost to Democrats in 2018, they're starting to pick some of those up. So bottom line is, Nancy Pelosi is under a considerable amount of pressure now in terms of her leadership at this point. There's a movement by centrists, if there are such a thing in the Democrat Party, but there are. I guess, at this point, centrists are still to the left, but, the bottom line is Nancy Pelosi could be in a bit of trouble. We'll see. It's something to bear watching.
Okay. When do you predict the 2024 election cycle will start?
You know, I'll be honest with you. It started at the Republican National Convention about a couple of months ago when Nikki Haley was on stage and Mike Pence was on stage, and there were others as well. This has already begun. But in true earnest, I mean, in answer to your question, let me think. Maybe in about 2 to 3 months. I mean, it's going to start right away. And the odds-on favorite, do you like how I'm already starting with the odds-on favorite? The odds-on favorite, obviously people will put Mike Pence there, but you got to watch Nikki Haley. Those would be the two to beat. I'm already talking 4 years ago. I can't even I'm in an electoral coma at this point.
All right. Well, it seems like the cycles never end. And the good news, it gives you a lot of job security, David.
Good point, Gordon. Glad to hear that from you, by the way.
All right. Well, David, thanks for being with us. Well, we talked about the city of Philadelphia and how crucial they are to the vote count on the election, but here's another story coming out of the city. They are calling out a Catholic foster care agency because they say they would refer same-sex couples to another agency if they wanted to adopt. Well, the Supreme Court has heard this religious liberty case, and as Paul Strand reports, it has far-reaching implications.
Catholic Social Services never actually had a same-sex married couple asked to foster a child through the agency.
There are dozens of foster agencies that are available to serve gay couples in the city of Philadelphia, and there's no evidence that any gay couple has ever even tried to use CSS as its agency.
But just the idea that it would turn them away was enough for Philadelphia to boot Catholic Social Services out of the foster care business in the city.
We stand ready to provide loving homes for children in need, but our ministry is stuck on the sidelines.
Philadelphia argued it has every right to do that.
The government has broad powers to impose conditions on contractors like CSS that stand in the government's shoes performing government functions.
Here the city is reaching out and telling a private religious ministry, which has been doing this work for 2 centuries, how to run its internal affairs, and trying to coerce it to make statements that are contrary to its religious beliefs.
That's why this is a religious liberty case. Philadelphia was basically demanding the agency give up its biblically based belief about marriage to do work with the city.
Or as Justice Alito put it,
the city can't stand the message that Catholic Social Services and the Archdiocese are sending by continuing to adhere to the old-fashioned view about marriage. Isn't that the case?
The statements that have been made by various officials make clear that the reason they're doing that is because they view this as some sort of odious anachronism.
A foster mom in this case said Philadelphia is harming children who need families.
It felt like I had been kicked in the stomach the day I learned the city was closing down Catholic Social Services foster program, despite a severe shortage of foster families.
Even as they legalized same-sex marriage a few years ago, the justices warned many religious believers would have to be protected because their beliefs about homosexuality aren't just personal opinions, they're determined by their holy scriptures. Now it's time to see if the justices themselves will protect those beliefs. Paul Strand, CBN News, reporting from the Supreme Court.
I want you to remember what that lawyer for the city of Philadelphia said, an odious anachronism. That's how he views Christianity and how he views a Bible-based view of marriage. He called it an odious anachronism in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. This is not an isolated case. Look at what happened in New York City, where Samaritan's Purse said we want to volunteer, we want to have Christian doctors and Christian workers come to Manhattan and help deal with the coronavirus outbreak and be able to take patients and treat them. We're not going to discriminate against anyone. If you've got the virus, we want to help you. We want to help the medical system there. We all saw the reports. We all saw the overcrowding. But here, a single city councilman said, well, because you don't allow homosexuals, active homosexuals, to be on your staff, we think you're discriminating, and so we want to make sure that that never happens, and we're going to station watchers over what you do. And then he adds some kickers that there aren't any Christians in New York City anymore, and we don't want you. So this is where our culture is going. And Here's another fact to consider in the city of Philadelphia case. There's not a single gay couple that ever applied to Catholic services for adoption. It's completely made up by the city. The city is saying, because you're Catholic, because you're Christian, because you believe in traditional marriage, you're not going to be part of our foster care system. And we don't care that there's a lot of foster kids that need foster parents. We're going to exclude all of them. And we don't want you in here, even though you've been doing this for now 200 years. These are incredible cases. Where our country is going is absolutely mind-boggling to me. It's like we've lost all common sense. Whatever happened to freedom of religion? Whatever happened to Congress shall pass no law? Here, the city of Philadelphia is trying to pass a law that is openly discriminating against a Christian organization. We'll await what the Supreme Court says, but realize these things are very important, and what these justices decide as to whether or not this is religious discrimination is going to affect every single city in the United States.